for this purpose, if you have questions, please post the questions and we will cover them all at the very end. And let's see, I'll make the closing remarks. So there's about 16 people on board, and those of you that showed up on time I think should be duly rewarded. So I'm going to start the presentation itself with a slideshow. And hopefully everybody can see my screen because your microphones are muted. So I'm going to start in this case by sharing with you the kind of information that I reviewed with the Purchasing Consortium Steering Committee in mid-November. And the reason is I'd like to have you understand what I was looking for when I did this work so that you understand the perspective in which I came to the decision and recommendation to make this agreement. So the basic considerations were as follows. Good. As is true for all of our agreements, I must consider the range of schools in the Purchasing Consortium, which is now about 87. And what I mean by that is there's a big range in size and purpose, maybe 55 students all the way up to over 1,200. So in looking for the right vendor, I must be pretty sure that they can handle their interests equally, and obviously that would require, in the case of looking for an online course provider, that that provider have a fairly wide range of courses to begin with. It also means that there should be some flexibility in terms of the use by the school and by the students. You don't want some of these locked-in arrangements that have a lot of mutual responsibility and restrictions built into them. Obviously, because of the range in size and purpose of our schools, I was looking for something that had what I consider to be a reasonable pricing scheme, and I realize that's a judgment term in the eye of the beholder. What it translates to is that I was looking for something which afforded the schools a small or no upfront cost. A lot of these bigger consortiums that you've heard about require an upfront investment and also a commitment to contribute to the courses. And I didn't feel like our schools, and for this purpose, that those were appropriate conditions. Similarly, I was looking for something that didn't have heavy minimum requirements, but was easy to scale in the context of maybe people trying it with a small group of students and then taking it upstream from there if it works out. Ideally, the vendor might have a local presence. It might sound funny, but I found in my years of working with the Purchasing Consortium that a local presence for a vendor is extremely important, especially when you're trying to get something new off the ground. Yes, our schools are sensitive about price, but service means a lot, and in many cases that means the ability to do the front-end educational work that is sometimes very helpful to the schools. I feel in this case that there are significant additional benefits to finding someone with a local presence in the context of professional development, training, and perhaps development of assistance or support or piloting with courses in development. So it's kind of a neat role and a neat opportunity if we found the right vendor. I think that market credibility for whatever choice I made or we make is pretty important relative to experience, support, availability, so that people can really take a serious look at this. I found in market testing, which is talking to people at meetings, either at technology or business officers meetings, I did not feel that many schools were looking at this kind of an option. So it was part of my feeling that it was a good thing to do to help people begin to take a look at this area. Experience with independent schools as a real plus, and a very important universal requirement, could have been higher in the list of things I talked about, was that the courses must be accredited. And the reason that's so important is that you have then a whole bunch of options as to how to use it or include it as far as your students are concerned. So I consider that to be a really important criteria because all online courses are definitely not accredited. So those are the background comments I wanted to make to share with you to give you a frame of reference for my choice of Laurel Springs. And here's the way they stacked up against those considerations. The first set was all about school size and flexibility. They have over 240 courses. In our agreement, they have eliminated what is normally an upfront enrollment fee, no minimum participation. Our agreement has a 3-year price guarantee. So it's based off of their normal prices. I have a confidentiality agreement with Laurel Springs, so I'm sensitive about how much of this is discussed or disclosed outside of our work together. But I think this is a reasonable arrangement for us, and you'll see samples of the pricing later on. They have 2 offices, one of which is right outside of Westchester on Route 3. They have a good operation in terms of support staff that are local, and the new director of education actually came from one of our schools out of Montgomery School. So we have local knowledge of our schools, their general needs, and I don't mean to suggest that we are all alike, but the fact of the matter is you'll be talking to people that understand the environment, both locally and in the context of independent schools. The market credibility is pretty well established because Laurel Springs started as a school in 1991. At this point, they have about 130 partner schools, of which 20 or so are independent schools, and I talked to some of them in my reference checking. The universal requirement, they meet very well because they are also a school. So the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, is that this agreement enables our schools to really take a look at an opportunity to demonstrate innovation and excellence. I think parents and people who are looking at our schools are asking a question about it. Do you have anything? What are you doing? What are you thinking? And so with that in mind, I wanted to find an option that would enable you to not give up your branding if you decided to experiment or begin to integrate this kind of an option into your work. So thanks for listening to me. Give you a frame of reference for Stephanie Fife, who is their Director of Business Development. And I'm going to change over and give Stephanie control, and she'll take over from down East Maine. Steph? Stephanie there? Hi, Colleen. I can't get it to her. There's something about an iPhone going on in this on my note here, and it doesn't belong there at all. Is a screen that's come up? Is she trying to get on the phone? Oh gosh. Okay. It's asking me to make a decision.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, that's better. I don't know if they can see your screen.
Bizarre. I could hear you guys the entire time. That is a little weird.
Okay.
I signed out and came back in.
Can they see your
Can you all
screen?
see my screen?
I can't, but I'm all locked up on your phone transfer or something. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that was interesting. We're good? Okay, perfect.
Now we're talking.
All right. Well, sorry about that, but I'm glad to be back with you guys all here now. So Al, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who is here with us today. Can you see the slideshow, or is it just the other piece?
We can see the slideshow.
Okay,
So
perfect.
you are on the college acceptance screen.
Wonderful.
There you go.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for being here today and taking time out of your schedule. Thank you, Al, for talking a little bit about Laurel Springs School. I'm excited to extend what we're doing with private schools to potentially some of the schools right here in our back office or our backyard, since we're right in Westchester. So I have a few slides here. A couple are a little bit about what Laurel Springs is and who we are, because that is really important as you consider who you're potentially partnering with in this endeavor. We also have pricing and a few other pieces of information, and then of course we have follow-up and we have time for questions as well. So every school is different, but we certainly have parallels. So as we go through this, please just consider what may be some of your questions relevant to your school, and I'm certainly happy to answer any of those. So as Al said, we were established in 1991. We were actually the first online high school in the country. So we have lots of experience in this area. I've been in online learning for about a decade now. So some really exciting things going on in terms of online, but mostly blended education as well. It's something that's very popular. It's really melding the best of both worlds in terms of your traditional school setting, and then also allowing students to partake in the technology and some of the soft skills necessary for online classes as well. We do, in addition to our accreditations that you see here on the screen, we do have lots of courses with University of California A through G and NCAA approval. So if you have students that are looking to potentially go into the California system, or athletes, this is very relevant and pertinent to your counselors who are making those recommendations and setting up course schedules. Now, because we are an online school, quite naturally, we are very flexible. It comes with the territory, I suppose. And we do have rolling enrollment, so rolling admissions, which is really an interesting concept, something very foreign to those of us that have always worked in a brick and mortar traditional school setting. So we actually accept students year-round at any time. And that actually allows us to work very flexibly with our partner schools who may have transfer students coming in, things of that nature. So it does apply quite well. And then we do have lots of AP honors courses, as well as world languages and a lot of different other offerings as well. One of the really important things to understand about us is our positioning in the education space. We are a college prep school. This is who we have always been. This is who we are. It's our positioning. As you can see here, these are just a couple of examples of where our students have been going to school as of late. The list is incredibly more expansive than this, but this is just a sampling, just because I wanted you to understand a little bit about who we are and where our kids are going. So one of the most popular questions when I'm chatting with folks is, so why are private schools and specifically independent schools partnering with Laurel Springs? Why does this make sense for them? I put a few of the different bulleted things here as to the conversations that I'm having with people and some of the gaps and challenges that our independent private schools partners are having. I will tell you, I think that probably the most significant one, and the one we hear about the most, is trying to expand curriculum offerings, particularly for small private independent schools. One of the challenges is continuing to stay relevant and differentiating yourself in the marketplace, particularly when there's lots of other opportunities out there for parents, and in terms of not just private schools, but charter and public and all of these things. And so it is difficult to offer everything to everyone. So we do have 22 AP courses. We have 5 world languages. lots of opportunities to fill in gaps that a school may have in their own course catalog. There is one particular school that I really enjoy working with. It's an independent school out in California, and one of the challenges that they had was that they continued to have students come in that were touring their school along with other schools, and this school did not offer Mandarin Chinese, and it was becoming a problem for them because students were opting to go to other schools that offered it. So we actually partnered with them to make sure that they didn't lose those enrollments because of the lack of a Mandarin program. And so we do provide Mandarin courses for those students, and in such a way have allowed that school to make sure that that they are actually retaining their students, but also not losing any potential enrollments that they could have. So that is a very popular way that schools are using us. Another popular way is that schools are really taking a look at their fiscal responsibilities and how they can do more with less. And one of those interesting pieces that schools are looking at is the student-teacher ratio. You want it to be low. That's part of the differentiator. However, it does get very challenging if you only have just a couple of students that want to take a course. And so you're committing a teacher to teaching maybe 5 students in a course, 4, sometimes even 3 students. And so the decision, ends up being, do we have that teacher teaching those 3 students, or do we just not offer that course this year? One of the ways that we've been working with folks is to offer that course in an online environment, and then that teacher who is teaching those 3 can then focus on a course where perhaps you have 10 or more enrollments. We do also tend to provide solutions for students with scheduling conflicts. I think probably the most popular way this comes about is for students taking more than one AP course, because those are typically only offered once throughout the school day. And so students that may have an AP Science and an AP English, unfortunately, they may coincide at the same time. And so obviously that doesn't work. And so we've helped resolve some of those conflicts for schools as well. Another really popular, and this is actually one of my favorite ways to work with schools, many middle schools, and I would venture to say most all middle schools, tend to have this handful of students each year that really has outgrown the capacity of the academic curriculum that was planned for. We often see this in math, where students really can go above and beyond the middle school level of math. And it becomes very challenging for a school in terms of what to do. Do we bring in a teacher for these couple of kids? Do we just keep them at the Algebra 1 or whatever the top level course is? We have worked with quite a few middle schools to allow them to offer high school math courses for that just handful of students. And then the students actually can graduate from the middle school and go into high school with high school credit, which is a really interesting concept and really attractive for not only the schools but parents as well. We also have been contacted by schools who were trying to manage wait lists. There were schools that had many students from overseas, and really trying to figure out if we only want to have a certain percentage of international enrollments, how does this look? We only have just a few places where we have dorm parents, or not necessarily dorm, but housing like right around the school. And so if you can only really accept 5 to 10 people, how do we manage that? And how do we ensure that the right 10 students are coming in? And so we have worked with some of those schools to enroll those students overseas in courses that help the school figure out what is the best solution for them. And then, of course, transfer students in, because we have that flexibility where we enroll students at any point. It is much easier to bring in a student mid-semester and enroll them with us than trying to plug them into exactly the courses that you have currently running with the class and trying to match up the curriculum. So those are a few of the reasons that we continue to hear from partners, some of the challenges that they're having, and some of the solutions that they're really looking at blended learning to solve for them. So what does this look like for a Laurel Springs blended learning program? So Laurel Springs offers online courses for your school students. They're your students. Interestingly, and this is different from some models that you may be aware of, our teachers teach the courses. Because we are a school and with the accreditation, our teachers do have to teach the courses, which is interesting because now you don't lose availability of your own staff. In other models, you may have to commit 1 to 2 or even maybe 0.5 of a teacher to the program, and you don't have to do that here. One of the things that is very important to us is that all of our partner schools provide a site coordinator. This is the liaison between your school and ours. We are really looking at the blended solution being the best of both worlds, and part of that means that there's great communication and ensuring the student is getting support not only from their online teacher and the online support, but also in the bricks as well. And so we want to work really closely together as a team for the benefit of the student. I have seen that site coordinator be everyone from the head of school to the librarian to a teacher, a department chair, an IT professional. It really depends on the school and what works best for them. But we do make sure that we do have a liaison, someone to work with. Now for that person, we do provide login credentials and we train them on the learning management system and how this works and how they can log in and see the dashboard and see exactly where the student is. You know, again, we just want it to be a true partnership. Now, those of you that may be familiar with different blended learning options, I just wanted to put a slide up here that made sure everyone understood the difference between Laurel Springs and some other options. We are not a consortium model, which is where you see you know, the teacher commitment. So there's no teacher commitment to us, it's our teachers. This also means there's no fee to partner with us whatsoever. There are no minimum enrollments. All of the courses are a la carte. So you just enroll students in just what you need. We have both parent pay and school pay models. So some of our partners, particularly perhaps in summer school, the students, you know, will intend on taking courses for supplements, for accessibility, all kinds of different reasons why students are taking courses in the summer. And many schools do want that to be a parent pay model, which we absolutely do as well. We can do it during the school year as well. So it's whatever the school feels most comfortable with. We do have some partners that do a parent tuition pay in the summer, and the school wants to be invoiced during the school year. So it just really depends on the school and what works for you. I think that one of the key pieces to this is that we have been doing this for a really long time. A reputation isn't built overnight, and you can see from the places where our students are going to college that, you know, we do have a reputation in the education marketplace here, and this does really help to differentiate the private schools and independent schools specifically from anything that may be offered, particularly in the public school market. There's a lot of quote-unquote, you know, vendors out there selling courses. So I think that the idea of partnering with a school that has a reputation certainly has value to it, particularly in communications with parents and explaining to them, you know, how this is working. Again here, this really is paramount for us. This is why we do this, and this is why I have this slide up here. You know, as we've all heard from Al and heard from me, you know, we are a school. That's our core business, our core school. This idea of partnering with other schools grew very organically, and it probably started about 10 years ago when schools just started calling us, asking us to help them with some challenges that they had. And so as that continued to grow organically, we realized that there's a really great opportunity here to do the right things for students. And so that's why we really built out this partnership program and division of our school because it's the right thing to do. That said, it is imperative to us that we are true partners in this, because the whole idea is that the student is getting the best of both worlds. And that's why this site coordinator is so important to us. And so here you just see the depiction of that person being the liaison between the two. So what does this look like? If any of you have not taken an online class or been involved in something like that, it's really hard to understand what does this look like. So the classes are asynchronous. What that means is that students can be in a class and they do not have to be in the same place at the same time on the computer at the same time. So this is very different from when we first envisioned online courses with there being a computer screen with a teacher speaking directly to you at a certain time of day. We have moved far beyond that. And so these classes are asynchronous. This means that it increases the flexibility for you. So let's say you have a student that needs AP statistics. You could plug them into their online course during period 2 or period 4 or during study hall, after school, whatever works for you. So you certainly don't have to plan on, okay, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3 p.m. the student needs to be at this place at this time. It is not at all like that. And so that flexibility certainly works with trying to provide solutions for our partners. Now, students work with their teachers, their Laurel Springs teachers, via email, Skype, telephone, during office hours, lots of different ways that they do that. They also pick up in our learning management system. They submit an assignment and they pick up the assignment, and there's lots of feedback on those assignments. And interestingly enough, sometimes students and teachers will have conversations back and forth in assignments that they're working on. So lots of different methods of communication. Teachers tend to try to replicate the method that students feel most comfortable with. Interestingly enough, that tends to be IM and Skype. Students feel most comfortable with that, which we can actually probably imagine from the nature of texting. So we do replicate that and work closely with those students.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. We keep on getting this box popping up. Do you see it? Yeah. Is there a way maybe you could put it in in the slideshow mode, and maybe that won't come up anymore?
Yes, actually, I have double screens here, which is interesting. That's why it's.
Oh, maybe that's why.
I think that probably is why. So what I'm going to do is unplug my double screen. If that works.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I was just kidding.
No problem at all. Not a problem at all. So this will take a second. It'll pop back up, and I'll be able to put it in the slideshow mode for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Carry on.
No problem. All right, can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, perfect. Now, one of the things that we added about 2 years ago or so is we added something called LSS Live. And this is a webinar room that is much like this room in itself. And it is staffed for 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday. It is staffed by our academic department chairs. And so students who run into, because of the classes are asynchronous, you think about it as a student working through a lesson. I'm like, I really don't get that. And they need some clarification in order to move on. And so we established LSS Live as a place where students can log in at any time during those 12 hours and get some real-time help, because unfortunately we can't require our online teachers to be on 24/7. So the students can log into LSS Live and get that immediate help to continue to make them understand the concepts that they're reading and move forward and make additional progress. Now, the next question, of course, is pricing and what does that look like. I want to thank Al, and he's done a wonderful job negotiating on behalf of PASO and the member schools in terms of working out a wonderful tuition package for the member schools. So as you mentioned, we have waived the annual registration fee, and then also have calculated on top of that an additional 10% tuition discount. As you can see, the pricing is based on the levels of courses, and then of course if it's semester or full year. And so when someone asks me, well, what is your price? You can see that it isn't as easy as you would think to answer that question without knowing the specifics of that particular question. So this is actually going to be in the recording as well as provided to you, because I'm sure that you would like to take a look at this. And this is per student, and it's, as you can see, semester or full year courses. So next steps. As I sit down and I work with different heads of schools and principals and whatnot, and when they plan out their blended learning initiatives, a few of the things that have worked well for schools is to identify your course offerings. Are there areas that you might be able to expand and leverage that potentially for even marketing purposes? So advanced placement, world languages, electives, and so on. Do you have low enrollment courses? So a bunch of the schools I've worked with have run a really nice financial model to really break down what is the break-even point for a course. So does it mean that they can run a course with 5 students? Or if it's less than 5 students, should they consider an online option to leverage their teacher in a more efficient way? Of course, analyzing retention data. So what are the reasons that perhaps some of the students have left, and is there a possibility to incorporate blended learning to retain some of those students? Was it an issue with flexibility? Or do we have some opportunity there? And then one of the timing of this is actually really, really good. One of the cautions that I have with schools is it's really exciting to get started in something like this, but I always encourage people, dip your toes in, try this out, get feedback from your students. And so this time of the year is perfect because we have so many schools that will have mid-year enrollments that perhaps the student had to leave for school for a month and they ended up finishing their course, and so that is a challenge in scheduling. A student who had a freed up period that maybe they're looking for an elective. But mid-year enrollments are a really great way to get a few students in, see how this works, find your site coordinator who you want that to be, get this all up and running, and then it allows you the opportunity to take a look at the data and the reflection and then plan for perhaps summer opportunities and then even next year as well. So I encourage everyone at different schools to kind of think about these different things, how it applies to your school. And then one of the interesting things, Al mentioned this, I think I've mentioned this, is that every school is different, right? So even independent private schools, there are some parallels, but every school has its own culture, its own history, its own everything. And so we love to chat and have really nice conversations with schools to understand your school and figure out if there are ways that we can help. And so this is an ongoing conversation. The really exciting thing is that we're in everyone's backyards. It's really fun to be able to chat with folks and see if there are different ways that we can help provide opportunities for students. So I do work in an office in Maine, but I am actually in the Westchester office all the time. Rachel Abbott is a wonderful resource as well, and she works in our Westchester office every day. And we love to chat and have questions, and so we would love to sit down and kind of consult and see what you guys are looking for. So with that, I am going to turn it back over to Al. Thank you all for taking time to listen to me.
Unmuted.
Thanks, everybody, for the time you put into this today. I just had one final closing comment, and I will send a note to everyone indicating that this presentation itself will be buried in the member side of the website, so you'll have to log on to get it. But as I considered this agreement and how to roll it out, I felt and feel that this kind of a decision or experimentation probably would involve a lot of people in the school. And so, although I said make this like a fireside chat and gather around the computer screen to learn about it, as a practical matter, that's pretty difficult to organize. But my suggestion is particularly that you might consider talking with Rachel and arranging a visit to your school. And I feel your responsibility to follow through effectively is to kind of have a group of people who it makes sense for her to talk with. That way you'll accomplish a lot more, and it may seem logical, but I find that not everybody kind of looks at an opportunity like this that way, and I would suggest it. So Stephanie, thanks so much for your time this morning, and everyone else. We had a pretty good crew, and now it's time to take questions. I feel that the presentation was as comprehensive as we could make it, given sort of a standard package for you all. But please raise any questions. I don't see any on my screen. I always wonder whether people are paying attention or that you did such a good job that there aren't any. But you will definitely have an opportunity to talk with both Stephanie and Rachel, and specific questions, obviously, they can deal with much more accurately for your interest. So I guess with that in mind, I will, let's just see if there are any questions that came up. You see any? Okay, you want to take it over?
Sure. There is one question. Can we get a demo of the actual curriculum or a sandbox to experiment with in? A sandbox
Absolutely.
To experiment in.
Yes. So I can send out a demo account to, actually, if you want to send me a quick email so I know who is asking, or anyone else that would like access to that, you can see my email right here, and I'll send you a demo account right out to you.
Okay. This question is a little, might be similar. Can we experiment with purchasing one course, or do we need to partner in a more holistic way?
No, we can absolutely experiment. So, keep in mind that there's no expectations. So we have some of our partners literally will use us for 1, 2, 3 students a year, and there's no expectations that it's even 3 students, because many times they don't quite know what challenges are going to arise, and so sometimes it's 1 student, and that's okay. We love it. We just want to be there to help when we have the opportunity to.
Okay, another question. How do the courses appear on a student's transcript?
That's a really great question. We have partner schools that do this a few different ways. Obviously, being a school, we have our own transcripts that we can provide. So some schools feel more comfortable allowing us to send the transcript right to them, so a student has 2 transcripts when they're headed off to college. I've had other schools that have felt comfortable with putting our courses on their transcripts with a little asterisk saying online course or whatnot. It really depends on the school's preference. Obviously, we can provide transcripts to whoever we need to.
Okay. Someone else wants to know if you can email the pricing information to them. So you can always maybe send it to us and we can email it out to our members.
Sure, absolutely.
How do you envision the process of grading and crediting courses? Would they be listed as our courses, as our grades? Perhaps these are decisions for the schools to make.
Yeah, again, that's one of the conversations that we leave up to schools. If a school is putting it on their transcripts, they're really the ones that are kind of taking ownership of it, meaning that, we can provide all of our gradebook data and all of these interesting things, but a school may have a sliding scale or something that they do with all of their courses that they want to incorporate these online courses into. And so if that course is going on a school's transcript, they do have the ability to do that.
Okay. Someone else, I guess, someone asked for the pricing, but they want a list of courses offered along with the prices. Is that online or something that you would email out?
It is online, but I can easily provide a link to it so no one has to go poking around and searching for it.
Okay. You can just send that to me and I can send it out to everyone who attended.
Okay, perfect.
Is there an option to have the school teachers teach the online version as well if that teacher got certified by Laurel Springs?
That is an option. It's not an option. It's interesting that we haven't actually gone that route before, but if you think about how we hire, interestingly, it's very different from, I used to teach high school English in a brick and mortar school, and so it's interesting that when you hire teachers, typically you're kind of bound to zip code areas, right? For us, that obviously isn't a challenge, and so we can hire teachers wherever, which allows us to have a pretty high standard of the teachers that are being selected. At the same time, we are continuing to grow and hire all the time. So if you are interested in that for your particular teachers, I would love to chat, talk a little bit about the teacher's credentials, and perhaps I know that Al mentioned our Director of Education that comes from the independent world, and engage her in that conversation as well because she ultimately makes the teacher hiring decisions.
Okay. What percentage of your students complete the courses? What's the statistics on attrition?
So we are a mastery-based program. So one of the things that's important to us is ensuring that students are learning this stuff. And so the biggest challenge is making sure that if a student is a week or 2 weeks behind where they need to be to end on time, we're continuing to work with them. Do they need to set aside more time to be working on this? But we do have the availability to work with schools. Some schools will work with us and say, hey, can we talk about an extension, 2-week, a 4-week extension for the student? And we can work those things out with schools as well. And so because of that, it really allows us to truly have everyone finishing courses.
Okay, sorry, I have them rolling in now. So, can you say, you mentioned the site coordinator before, can you say a little more about the site coordinator's responsibilities?
Absolutely. So we have a wonderful system that makes it very easy for site coordinators. A site coordinator can log in with their credentials, and they see a dashboard of all of the students that are enrolled. So depending on our partner schools, I mean, really that could be 1 student or it could be 50 students. It, obviously depends. Now that dashboard has some color coding. We track students for the dashboard purposes by grade, but then also by pacing. And so part of this is if a student is supposed to be done their course by June 1st, we need them to be on pace to be able to do that. And so, as people working in schools, we all understand that, you could turn in one assignment and get 100% on it and your grade looks great. Well, the grade really isn't great if you should have turned in 10 assignments by that time. So if you're taking a look at the grades along with the pacing, it really gives you a clear understanding of how that student is doing. And so with the site coordinator on that dashboard, they see a column that's highlighted red, yellow, or green in terms of grade, and then red, yellow, and green in terms of pacing. And so from that very dashboard, if a student has a green, they're doing well. Green, yellow, what's going on? If there's a red in there, oh my gosh. And so it really helps prioritize for that person. And then they can click on a student name, and they have complete visibility to everything in terms of the course, the grade book, teacher feedback, literally everything. And so from a site coordinator perspective, it can be very little responsibility in terms of logging in once every couple of days, just make sure kids are on track. If you're seeing something, then poke around and tap little Johnny and say, hey, the Laurel Springs class teacher contacted us, and they said that they're having a hard time getting an assignment from you. Is there anything I can do to help? So that's kind of the level that we're looking at. We have some site coordinators that really just live off that dashboard, and then others that really want to own it and be involved at a very higher level. It's not necessary, but that's just what the school wants to do, and so it really depends. But it can be as little as logging in and just checking a dashboard every couple days.
Okay, I'm going to ask the next couple questions all at once. What is the platform, i.e. web-based only, native apps like iOS and Android? Is Flash used at all? And are there integrations with existing LMS and SIS systems, or is there an open API available? I hope you know what that means.
Yeah, we have some tech people in the room. So we use BrainHoney as our LMS. We are going through an upgrade of our SIS that will be in place probably this spring. It won't make an impact to the visibility of what people are doing, but it will make for some streaming efficiencies and whatnot. Some of our courses do have Flash. In the world of online learning, like everything was built in Flash once upon a time. Since then, everyone is getting tablets and iPads and all these things, and we all know that that doesn't play well with Flash. And so in the online industry right now, everyone is kind of trying to rewrite everything so that the Flash isn't necessary. So, this is something that I'd love to chat with some of the schools, because if their students are working primarily on tablets or let's say iPads, we want to talk specifically about what isn't too much Flash-based stuff to make sure it's a nice opportunity for the students. So that really gets into some of the granular stuff with each school in terms of the technology stuff. But I would love to talk to specific schools and talk a little bit more about those features. Right now, we are not, the BrainHoney LMS that we're using is not, we can't plug and play with other LMSs. I'm assuming that the question comes from someone that maybe used like a Moodle or an eCollege or something, and they're wondering if this plugs and plays with that so then it appears on your LMS. So right now we don't have that capability. But again, it's a really great conversation to have with each school to figure out exactly where those questions are coming from and why, to see what challenges or opportunities that there are.
Okay, 2 more questions. How many students are enrolled in a given class at any given time?
Okay, that's a really good question, and it's a hard one to answer only because the online nature is so different. So when we hire teachers, a lot of our teachers are adjuncts, which means that they may have as little as, let's say, 10 students. They may have, 80 students. It depends on what time commitment that teacher has. So if we're hiring someone that's adjunct that, says, hey, I can put forth the effort and I want to take 20 students, that's where the capacity is, and we judge that as well. Then that teacher would only have 20 students in that class because they're the teacher assigned to that course shell, right? So it's different. It's a course shell as opposed to, what you think when you're walking down the hall in a traditional school and you look into a class. That doesn't mean that another teacher isn't teaching that same course shell with another 30 students in it, right? And so it really depends on the teacher, in what they're handling. Perhaps we have a teacher teaching 3 different courses, and so there's smaller amounts of students in that particular course shell. So there's tons and tons of variables that weigh into that, which I'm sure seems very strange coming from a brick and mortar world where it's a very black and white, just many kids is in this class. But because of the difference of it being course shells versus classrooms you walk into, there isn't an easy answer. But at the same time, based on specific stuff that you're looking for, so if you're trying to understand like student-teacher ratio or things like that, we can talk more specifically about that and exactly what you're looking for.
Okay, last question. Is there a way for students to collaborate with one another within the Laurel Springs site?
Yes. So in courses, we do have discussion threads. Now, as you would imagine, English courses would have more discussion threads than other content areas, but that's one area. We also have a community thread site. We also have, and this really depends on the school. So some schools want their students to have access to some of the extracurricular stuff that we're doing with students. Some don't. So it really depends on what you're looking into. But one of the great advantages to this is that we have students in, don't hold me to this, but I believe it's 48 states currently and about 60 countries. And you can imagine with rolling enrollments that those numbers change all the time, so it's very difficult to have static numbers. But in 60 countries, that creates a really new dynamic in terms of global citizenship, all kinds of global stuff. And so it's a really nice benefit to having students together in a classroom from all over the world, and then having meaningful discourse, whether it's a thread of discussion or not, or some other avenue of communication. And so, it's a really interesting conversation with the school saying, how much do you want your students to be involved? How much do you not? These are some of the really great things that we can do. Let's talk about it and kind of see where we go from there. Do we have more questions?
Okay, that's all the questions that I have.
Those are some great questions, by the way.
Yep. Stephanie, thank you so much, and to everyone. I would just like to close by saying the experience with Stephanie and the question and answers, and I was fascinated by the fact that virtually every single person who signed on stayed on for the question and answer period, which really was reflective, I think, of interest. I would also want everyone to know that in doing my due diligence and with the assistance of Bob Sager, we visited their offices in Westchester a couple of times. I met with everyone in that office, at least personally, introduced myself, met the customer service people, the people behind the screens, things like that. So I came away with an impression of this group, and I think Stephanie conveyed it as an organization very well this morning. So I can't thank you enough for attending. You have their email addresses, and Stephanie's made herself available to send you material directly, or Rachel, and I hope you'll take advantage of some exploration, and I hope this is helpful, and I stand ready, obviously, to help any of you in any way I can as well. Thanks so much for being a part of this webinar this morning, and have a wonderful day and Christmas season. Thank you.